The Americans tried to establish trade with China as soon as the American Revolution ended. After all, American colonists have always liked everything from China. From the middle of the first decade of the 17th century until almost the beginning of the Revolution, the British East Indian Company provided everything Chinese goods to American colonists, a specialty which in the early 1770s Americans were consumed at the rate of more than billion cups a year. Before the before Before the revolution, the Americans were forbidden to trade with China because then the rights of the monopolist to trade in the Far East were owned by British East Indian Company. But when America won the war, the company's monopoly lost its importance, and the Americans were able to trade freely with China. Between their 1784, when the Empress of China was making on its way, and by the end of 1812, the 3,000 American ships made 618 crossings to Canton. These ships carried ginseng, fur, sandalwood, and Spanish silver dollars, which were used to buy Chinese silk, tea, porcelain, and other exotic goods.
Although trade with China made a profit mainly to merchants, they were not only people enriched at its expense. During the Revolution, much of the American merchant fleets was destroyed by the British Navy, which persistently attacked American ships at ports and on the high seas. This meant that in order to develop trade with China, the Americans had to build new ships, and this in turn brought the shipyard back to life, creating thousands of jobs for people of various crafts. These ships needed equipment, which involved thousands of workers as well as a team, which contributed to the demand for officers and sailors. Each time the ships returned, their owners had to pay custom tax to the government, and when the goods from these ships were sold in stores, they became a source of income for their owners. Thus, the beneficial effects of trade with China were felt everywhere. The money invested in the construction of ships, equipment, staffing, payment of taxes, and the sale of goods fed and strengthened the economy. The evolving trade with China has also helped the United States strengthen its position at sea, becoming a school for sailors who could later be recruited to serve in the merchant navy or navy to defend their homeland. After the end of the War of 1812 and before the Civil War, trade with China continued to enrich merchants and to promote the development of the economy. At times, its volumes exceeded 4% of the country's foreign trade.
So trade with China has also led to the creation of the Clippers, the Greyhound Sea, arguably the most amazing sailboat ever human have created. They were specially designed to quickly travel the distance to China and the back, because the fresher the tea, the more expensive it is. Trade with China was one of the first engines of American investment. The most prominent and successful merchants invested their millions in a range of business ventures, in the construction of railways and mining enterprises, in the creation of banks. This contributed to America's economic and industrial power in the 19th century. In addition, many traders with China have become philanthropists, so have left behind a rich heritage. Nevertheless, the fortunes of American merchants and the benefits to the economy must be assessed in comparison with the damages accompanied the development of trade with China. Many American merchants who traded with China earned much of their fortune in the morality and legally unforgivable opium trade. Also, the opium wars were not fought by the Americans, they still have a serious responsibility to support the drug trade. So generally opium wars, it's two armed conflicts in China in the mid-19th century between the forces of Western countries and of the Qing dynasty, which ruled China from 1644 to 1911. So the first opium war was fought between China and Britain, and the second opium war, also known as the Arrow War of the Anglo-French War in China, was fought by Britain and France against China. Well, and in each case the foreign powers were victorious and gained commercial privileges and legal and territorial concessions in China. The conflicts marked the start of the era of unequal treaties and other inroads on king's sovereignty that helped weaken and ultimately topple the dynasty in favor of Republican China in the early 20th century. The opium wars arose from China's attempts to suppress the opium trade. Foreign traders, primarily it's British, had been illegally exporting opium mainly from India to China since the 18th century. But the trade grew dramatically from about 1820. The resulting widespread addiction in China was causing serious social and economic disruptions there. Perhaps the most enduring and undoubtedly beautiful legacy of trade with China can be found in art museums and the homes of people who execute works of art that have come to us in the Middle Kingdom era. So, all these issues were covered in the book of E.A.G. Dolin, When America First Met China, and I confidently recommend you to read this book. And thank you for your attention. Stay tuned and see you soon.